What is going on? It is Drew Code Sports Talk. Oh, excuse me.
Words are hard.
Yeah, I'm already slurring my words, guys. And I am your host, Andrew Wright, or as you can call me, future predictor over here, predicting that it was going to be the Celtics and Warriors in the NBA Finals, and then predicting that the Warriors were going to win the NBA Finals. And as Cody, you and I just watched 30 minutes ago, they ended up winning. I mean, it's amazing. But anyway, we'll get into that in a second. But over in Clovis, California, is my co-host Cody Johnson. Cody,
what's going on, everybody? Yes, Andrew Wright. His last name is an omen to his predicting. He was right on this one, so he's going to be extremely obnoxious tonight, folks. So just fair warning. But welcome to the show. We hope you guys enjoy it. Obviously, we have some recaps of the finals, and we have the NFC South we'll be record predicting. So stay tuned, you guys. You're not going to want to miss that. And we're going to hit this intro and get started. So here we go.
Take off from a break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft. You can change lives. You create thoughts. Never waste time. You got one shot. You got one life. Better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5. No mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts.
All right, Cody. Well, God, I was right. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, let's just
can't get over it, man.
You want to take a lap, or what do you want to do?
I would love to take a lap. I would love to take a lap right now. No, thank you guys for joining us so much. So happy to be here. Of course, it's a lot easier to be on here, Cody, when you're right about picking the NBA Finals, the teams and the winner. Oh, I mean, I should have just went after MVP too. I mean, geez, I would have just been 3 for 3 on that. Anyway, I'd be batting 1,000, guys.
You should go buy a lottery ticket and test your luck.
Yeah, no, all right. Let's not go too far. Anyway, it's rigged. Come on now.
Yeah.
But no, I really am. I'm very happy to be here. Hey, 2 weeks in a row. Sometimes that feels a little rare. Anyway,
you're putting together a streak.
Yeah, there we go. This is an exciting episode. Obviously, we get to talk about the NBA Finals, Cody. We're going to have our MLB power rankings. Hopefully, I get to talk a little bit more about my power rankings, but we'll see. And then we have the NFC South predictions, where we have already made it from AFC North and NFC North, and then now we're starting into the NFC South. So it's all really exciting, man. Really loving this show. I'm already super stoked for it. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on today. But Cody, before we get into all that, how are you doing, man?
Doing pretty well, dude. It's been a productive week, and it's almost over. I'll be seeing you in about 48 hours for your son's party, and then
Yes.
we get to celebrate Father's Day, not together, but I'm sure we'll get to do something, or the family's going to try to do something to celebrate us. But other than that, man, just gearing up for in NFL. Excuse me, I can't get words out tonight. For the NFL league going on, and then we have some pretty exciting news that we're going to be announcing pretty shortly about an episode coming up in a few weeks. So pretty excited about that, and
yes,
a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, which is great.
Yeah, everything's looking good for Drew Code, and I love talking with other podcasts. I love trying to connect with them, and this is going to be one of the first ones. Obviously, we're going to talk about it later, so I'm not going to go in depth, but it's one of the first ones that we're actually going to be able to, talk to. So this is really exciting. Really. Well, you know what? I'll just say it. I'll give a shout out to From the Backseat, a sports podcast. They have invited us on their show, and we have also invited them onto our show. So very soon we are going to have some episodes with them, and I'm very excited because both of their favorite teams, Cody, as I think you had told me, are complete rivals to our team. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. So Ethan, who's essentially the moderator or the host, his teams are the LA Chargers, and I think he's a Padres fan. Clark is a fan of the Padres as well, and he's also a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So very, very excited and very, very, very cool guys. So we've been able to correspond with them, and we're pretty pumped about it. And they gave us a shout out last week on their show, so we were very gracious about that. And we're really excited to do an episode with them and collaborate. Fingers crossed it goes really well to where we can keep doing it, because we would love to expand this to more people to be able to interact with, and it's really exciting. So
absolutely. So big shout out to them. Thank you guys for shouting us out, and thank you for inviting us. And we're super excited. I can't tell you how excited Cody and I are to have you guys. I've already thought of like 5 different questions, and I just need to like write them down and do some in-depth look at them. But other than that, I'm excited. So I'm all ready for it.
Yeah, same.
And I get to talk a little bit more about baseball, and who doesn't love that? Anyway, so Cody, let's start getting into this. So the Warriors win; they are the NBA champions, 2022 NBA Finals champions. So congratulations to the Golden State Warriors. I think during the regular season, it wasn't. I don't think it was completely inconceivable, but I think majority of everyone was saying it's going to be the Suns. It's going to be the Suns. It's going to be the Suns.
Right.
I think for majority of the year, I think it was safe to say, it kind of looked like it was going to be the Suns, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I usually don't like to take the number 1 seed. I hate doing that because it never usually ends up being 1 and 1. It's usually like if there is a number 1 seed, the other team is like the number 3 or 4 or whatever. It's just it never works out like that. Even like in college, the college tournament. So it's always like that. There's never, the top Final 4 teams. They're never all number 1 seeds. It just never works out that way. So, I thought, out of the number 1 seeds, which I believe was Boston at the time and Golden State when I was thinking about it, I never thought that Boston was going to. I thought they were the more unlikely team because they are so young.
Right.
And Cody, I'm going to start there first. I'm going to start with the negative, and I think we should end with the positive because I think we're going to have a few more talking points on the positive. So I hope I don't mix it up on you. So I am sorry in advance, but I do want to bring this up. So the Celtics lost, and you and I were texting. This is not on our notes. This is kind of off the cuff here, Cody. You and I were texting. Jason Tatum was not having a good game.
Right.
He completely shut down. Jaylen Brown was kind of the guy who stepped up.
And
it was a little disheartening, at least for me. I really like Jason Tatum. I don't think he's bad. I think he is still very young. I think he is tired. But I also do feel like he's never had to come out of his shell and be the man. Like he's always had the crutch of Jaylen Brown.
Sure.
So I wanted to start with this, Cody. I think this may be overreaction, an hour away, hour past the actual game. But should the Celtics make a change for next year, or do you think they should keep this team and continue to ride with this team?
I would keep this team intact as much as possible for a defensive purpose, but I would go out and I would find maybe a floor general type of point guard that is not afraid to score the basket, not afraid to be there defensively. I think that's what they were missing. Marcus Smart is a fantastic defensive player, but he's not a floor general. He's not someone that's like a Draymond Green-esque where he knows where everyone is supposed to be and knows everyone's assignments and kind of gets the ball rolling. One of the things about Jason Tatum, I think that was difficult is, when he would get the ball on the 3 and he's going to shoot, his release is kind of his reloading of the ball to shoot is so long that it gives the defender an opportunity to close in on that space. And I think some of the things that Jason Tatum will have to work on is a quicker release, maybe just when he gets the ball, just getting it up faster. Jaylen Brown, I think, is somebody who they might want to look at being a focal point, and maybe you make Tatum the ball handler primarily, because Tatum with the ball, and he's a distributor, very good at that. Maybe you take the pressure off of him and to be the primary scorer. But for defensive purposes, this is what got them here, is their defense. So I would keep that as much intact as possible. Re-sign Horford, do what you can to bring back Smart. Grant Williams, Robert Williams for sure needs to come back. Don't let him walk out the door. He is an anchor in your center position. But I would say that they do need some sort of third option, or like I mentioned, a floor general type that's going to help get them organized, get them under control, because that's what the Warriors had. They had somebody that was under control and settled them down. Boston, once they got the turnover bug, they just couldn't kick it. And they made some small runs, but they were still shooting themselves in the foot when it came to turnovers. I mean,
yeah,
I think they committed something like 23 or 24 turnovers in this game, and they're 1-7 if they commit more than 15 turnovers in a game. And clearly that's what majority of their problem was, a turnover bug. And I think that is because they don't have somebody that's, that type of floor general, the one that can get them organized. So that's what I would do if I were them for the offseason.
Yeah, you're right. Boston had 23 turnovers, and the Golden State Warriors had 27 points off of turnovers. So, there's a stat right there. I mean, they're getting more points than you're turning the ball over. So, which means they're converting literally more than everything that you're giving up. So that's not a recipe for success.
No.
Listen. I like the Celtics team. I do. I think the Celtics team defied all odds. They shouldn't, in my opinion, they shouldn't have been here with what they have. I mean, yes, Jason Tatum is phenomenal. Jaylen Brown is really good. But Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, if you would have gone into the season like that, like the Celtics did, you would kind of be like, okay, where are they getting into the playoffs? I guess the East is that weak, so you could probably make that assumption that they're at least going to get in. But I don't think a lot of people thought, first of all, they were going to have the best record in basketball at one point, and also I don't think people thought that this team could get in to the playoffs, let alone the NBA Finals. So I like this team. I think you need to give up something. And you brought up a good point that maybe Jaylen Brown shouldn't be the one to have the ball in his hands. And that's a good point, because Jaylen Brown, for all intents and purposes, is one of the worst ball handlers I've ever seen a borderline superstar be. He had 5 turnovers. I know that doesn't seem like much, but it just felt like every time he tried to drive, he lost the handle. He is one of the worst ball handlers in the NBA. And it's really weird, because he's so good at scoring the ball, at driving to the bucket, making these shots. We saw today he had 34 points. He was the go-to guy for Boston. And unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. And I do feel like Jason Tatum really didn't do well. I feel like Jason Tatum just was very timid in trying to do everything. So for me, I think they do need to make a change. And I honestly, even though I'm giving a lot of praise to Jaylen Brown, I do think that you should get rid of Jaylen Brown. I do think Jason Tatum is a better overall player than Jaylen Brown. I would say Brown is probably the better defender. And obviously he's the one who stepped up in a big game 6. But I think Jason Tatum is the way to go. And the reason I say that is he is a guy, like you said, he can distribute the ball, he can rebound, he can score the bucket, he can get to the rack. And he doesn't, it doesn't seem like he turns the ball over as much as Jaylen Brown. It just seems like Brown turns it over probably more than probably less than I think, but it just seems like almost every time he was trying to drive to the hoop, he was giving up the ball. And at some point it felt like that with Horford too. He kept swatting the ball away from him, which was just kind of funny. But I think the Celtics would be good to trade away Jaylen Brown, maybe get a bigger name, or just get some more role guys. I think they've proven that they can do well with homegrown talent. They can do well with with the draft. So I think maybe getting some assets there, like you said, maybe get a true point guard, maybe get a younger big man. I mean, yeah, you got Robert Williams, who's phenomenal, but get a big man who can shoot and play defense and actually can move, unlike Al Horford. So for me, I think they need to make a move. I think, yes, this team is good enough, but are they good enough to win an NBA Finals? I don't think so. I think they got lucky to play the Warriors because I think the Warriors just have no big men. Like Wiseman was virtually unplayable. They couldn't play Kuminga, and the reason is these guys are very young. They haven't had the experience, and you can't trust them right now. And so I feel like if you're the Celtics, you're like, well, we're kind of in the same boat. We just have big men. So if we add another shooter, we add a guy who can maybe defend a little bit more, who can move the ball, who could be a good number 3, I think then you have something. But right now, currently, their number 3 target is Marcus Smart, and you're not going to win like that. Marcus Smart is way too inconsistent. And I think it's just time to make a move. I think the Boston Celtics have proven that Tatum and Brown aren't the best duo, because when they're both on the floor together, it's either Tatum is taking control of the offense or Brown. And I feel like that's what they went with. And I feel like, and you and I were talking about it too, he only had 2 points in the second half, Jason Tatum. So they obviously were like, just give it to Jaylen Brown. And what does that do to a guy like Jason Tatum, who's still under 25 years old, and you're not giving him the ball, and he's supposedly your superstar. So for me, I think you got to make a change and kind of force Jason Tatum's hand a little bit of, hey, you have to be the superstar now. You can't give it up to Jaylen Brown. You got to do this. We believe in you this much. You got to go work. And so I think he can do it. I mean, in the regular season, he was good. Even in the playoffs, he was good. Just the NBA Finals, Tatum, for some reason, shrunk, and it was very disappointing.
Yeah, well, I will say, too, LeBron did have a finals. I think his first finals with the Spurs, he didn't show up, played poorly. This kind of mirrors that argument, though, is that LeBron didn't have as much help as Tatum did in this team. My only pushback with getting rid of Jaylen Brown is, look, with a rookie head coach, you turn the season around in January when you guys were under 500. You guys had the best record after the All-Star break leading into the playoffs. The only thing that beat you was just a Golden State team that was essentially destined to win. Once they got Klay Thompson back, there was no beating this Golden State Warriors unless you were just unworldly. And, let's just hypothetically say that Jason Tatum played up to his potential. Jaylen Brown played as well as he did. Marcus Smart and Horford contributed the way they did. Celtics probably do win this series, and now we're not talking about dismembering the team. We're talking about, okay, how can we keep improving it or keep it intact? So, I would say, if we want to roll with this thing one more season at least, or at least 2 more seasons, I would say that, because I don't know what other perimeter player you would trade Brown for and get back that's comparable or that could shine with Tatum. And I mean, Tatum's a good player, but if this shows anything, Brown's the guy you want to hang on to, because in the big moments, Brown will show up where Tatum just wasn't ready for that moment yet. And you give Tatum an opportunity to still work with Brown or build around those two. And if you get back to the finals, Tatum understands more what he needs to do, improves on that role. And Tatum still shows out the way he does. And in fact, gains better experience, because from what it looks like is Jaylen Brown was more of the attacker offensively than Tatum. Tatum looked so timid that, he would try so hard, and he'd also commit turnovers, especially in this game. And if you're the superstar of the team, you can't really lose opportunities like that for your team. So I get your point, but I would just say I would keep this intact, because there's really no other option that pairs well with Tatum. And for right now, I would still let this team kind of work together for another season or two before we go blowing it up, because there's just no other options out there. I mean, unless you can swing a Bradley Beal trade, I would say, okay, that's an upgrade. But I think you do lose a little something defensively, because I feel like Brown is better than Beal defensively, but you're gaining a huge upgrade offensively. So you're trading an evil for another evil. But, we'll see how this offseason goes. The draft, is in, I think, 2 weeks. So we'll see what they do in the draft and amongst other trades during the offseason. But I can easily respect though that maybe we change a part here and there, and then we see where we go.
You took the words right out of me. I was going to say, I mean, who do you think makes the Celtics better? I mean, Jaylen Brown or if you could swing at Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would argue Bradley Beal
Mm-hmm.
because he's a more consistent shooter. You're subbing, yes, defense for offense, but at the same time, Bradley Beal doesn't turn the ball over that as much as Jaylen Brown. I think he's a more consistent 3 shooter. And I feel like, yes, you're going to substitute that defense, but at the same time, look at the Warriors. I mean, they substitute defense with Steph Curry. They substitute offense with Draymond Green. So there's a way to balance it out and still do well. I think it's important to have at least one or two guys who are like, two-way players who aren't going to be great offensive guys, but who are also not going to be a liability. And for me, I just feel like obviously the Celtics need to do that. And it's kind of funny too, because if I were to tell you that the Warriors won this game, I think you'd be surprised, because field goal percentage in today's game, the Celtics had 42.5 and the Golden State Warriors were only 41.3. One of the bigger differences was the 3-point percentage. Golden State had 41.3 from 3, and Boston was 39.3. But Boston had more free throws attempted and made. They were out rebounded by 3 rebounds. I don't think that's that huge of a difference. They both had 27 assists. The steals went on the Warriors side 13-8. The blocks were barely Celtics by 8-7, and then it was just obviously the turnovers is the big one there. But Golden State fouled more. Boston had more points in the paint, and surprisingly, Golden State had the largest lead of the game, which was 22 points. So, I mean, you look at those numbers and you're like, how did the Warriors win? And I think the biggest differences were the 3-point shooting, of course, but also the turnovers. But other than that, I mean, the Boston did really well, but they seemed dead almost the whole game. And I said at one point, with the last 5 minutes, Boston would hit a big shot and they would get within like 12 points or 11 points or 10. And then Golden State would fire right back and hit the same shot. And that's what experience does. Just because they hit a big shot doesn't mean you can't go back down the floor and hit another shot of yourself to go shot for them. And it was just too much for Boston. Boston got overwhelmed. And I don't know, man. You look at those numbers, and to me, it just is like, I think something does need to change. Boston won literally everything except for 3-point percentage and the turnover battle. And I think there's a big you need offense. You need more offensive guys. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe get rid of Jaylen Brown, or if you feel like getting rid of Jason Tatum, I wouldn't highly recommend it, but you could make a case for Boston and say, hey, he completely shrunk. Yeah, he's a great regular season guy, but I'd rather have the guy who can win in the playoffs. So, I think you can make that argument.
Yeah, I mean, I would keep Tatum too, because if we're really being honest with ourselves, I think then we're talking about, I think Jaylen Brown is probably closer to his peak. And I think then Jason Tatum hasn't quite hit that peak, which means his ceiling is a lot higher. If he's going to get better and he's already similar to Jaylen Brown's game, then, maybe that just means that Tatum has more to grow. So yeah, you bet on Tatum, but in the immediate future, Brown probably is the guy that you build around, but then where does it go? I agree with you that I wouldn't recommend getting rid of Tatum, because again, his ceiling is far higher with where he's at than Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown is close to his ceiling, where argument could be made that Jason Tatum probably hasn't even touched his prime yet. He's still kind of raw, and he hasn't even hit his peak yet. And that's scary to think about, considering, he's only 24.
I think that is 100% accurate statement.
Yeah, and just briefly too, I'm looking right now on a website right now. It's Sports Track. It's tracking free agencies for the upcoming NBA free agents. There is not a whole lot of centers, power forwards, or point guards that are available at good quality. So I don't know what the Celtics would want to do, but maybe you wait until next season when more free agents come available before you make major changes.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to make a decision to get rid of Brown or Smart or Horford or Tatum. But that'd be just my opinion if I were their GM.
Quick thought. Anthony Davis. He was rumored to go to Boston before he went to LA.
Uh-huh.
It might not be a bad situation. He's a guy who plays defense. He can shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he does get injured, but as Boston has shown, they can do okay without guys who get injured, and they can hold the fort down until they come back. What do you think?
I'm not opposed to that, but who are we getting back? I would say if it's not Smart and Brown, I don't want it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it would have to be Jaylen Brown, I would assume. Probably, maybe both, Smart and Brown. I think you could swing both. I
think it would help, but then I would some part of me would want to get Miami involved because Duncan Robinson's just kind of wasting on the Heat's bench, and find a way to also get his contract on the Lakers just so we have a shooter. But that would just be me being selfish. But yeah, I would do Brown and Smart for AD. And I think that would clear up a little bit of salary cap, but then we lose a ton of our size, which, LeBron can't play 5, especially if he wants to be the ball handler. And
but I think the way that the Warriors, I think, again, prove that you really don't have to have a traditional big man. I mean, Draymond Green was their big man. Yeah. I think he might be shorter than Andrew Wiggins, or like just as tall as Wiggins. So I think he kind of proved that. Not him. I think the Warriors proved that it is something you can do. I'm not saying have LeBron there. I agree with you as the 5. Probably have to get someone else there, but I don't think going smaller is necessarily a dumb move.
Sure, I get you.
All right, let's talk about the winners. We talked enough about the Celtics. I think it was just disheartening that the Celtics really, it was a close game. 13 points isn't a ton. Yeah. But I think it was more disheartening that, it felt like the Celtics really had a good chance to win this game, go to game 7. I just felt like it was going shot for shot, and it really discouraged Boston. And that's what's wrong with having a young team. They just don't know how to get out of that funk yet.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the winners. So this is the 4th NBA Finals championship for this Golden State Warriors team. For the core of Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. All 3 guys completely deserve it. I love Draymond Green. I know he talks a lot. I know he's not a huge fan favorite, but I just love the confidence that he has. And today he really did step up. Yeah. He had 12 points. He had like 2 big threes.
Yep.
Late in the second half. He had 2 blocks, 2 steals, 8 assists, 12 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
He did everything. And he only had 1 foul.
I know, amazingly enough, after all of that.
He had 1 foul, which is insane. That's an insane Draymond Green stat. Just got to say that. But good for him. Klay Thompson, I don't know what you can say about this guy. This guy went through hell. This is every NBA player's worst nightmare. You get this huge injury where it takes you out for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. And then you're getting ready to come back, and then you have another huge injury that takes you out the second year in a row. Congratulations to him. It was well deserved, and I think he showed, even though he wasn't great. Mm-hmm. I think to me he proved that he should be. If you're going to pick Klay Thompson or Jordan Poole, at least right now, it's going to be Thompson. Poole is going to have to come off the bench because Poole had some really terrible shot selection. Mm-hmm. It was awful. You and I were texting about it for 15 minutes. We're like, dude, what is he doing?
Yeah.
What is he seeing? So congratulations to him. And then Steph Curry, the finals MVP. I mean, it was well deserved in my opinion. I didn't think. I know there was a lot of chatter about, oh, maybe Wiggins. Listen, Wiggins had a good game 4 and game 5.
He had
He
two
was
good games.
phenomenal.
Two good back-to-back games.
He was also awful in game 1 and 2.
Right.
And everyone kept saying he needs to step up. He's a guy that the Warriors need to step up. And he didn't even step up in game 3. He stepped up in game 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Finally, but Steph Curry I felt like was great the whole series. He had one game where he only got 12 points, but he affected how the Celtics defended, and they actually ended up winning that game anyway. So for me, it's got to go Steph Curry. I think he was no doubt about it, the MVP. Cody, what did you feel?
I mean, of course he should have been MVP. For those that think Andrew Wiggins would have won MVP, I think, sure, if you want to just really analyze things, let's just take Steph Curry off the team. Does Andrew Wiggins keep this team as a championship team? No, I don't think so. There's a reason why Steph Curry did what he did. In game 4, he scored 43 points and but beat Boston in Boston when he really didn't have very much help. Klay Thompson shot fairly decent. Jordan Poole didn't shoot very well. And Andrew Wiggins particularly didn't shoot very well. He just played pretty good defense on Jason Tatum. Yeah. But Curry scored, I think, out of one game, every game he scored, I think, 30 points. The only game he didn't score was game 5, but he had the rest of his team to pick him up, which probably took the life out of the Boston Celtics. The fact that they did the best they could on Steph Curry, going 0 for 9 in game 5, and yet the Warriors still won at home when they were, I think, down from some part of that game, and then they ended up coming back and maintaining that lead. But this is 100% deserving for Steph Curry. In my opinion, he should have won 2015 Finals MVP.
Yes.
And we got to stop this whole, just because you play defense on the best player, which my argument would be Andrew Wiggins did play really good defense, but is it good defense, or was Jason Tatum just in his head and making poor decisions? So Andrew Wiggins was there at the time of that defense. And I'm not saying, again, he didn't contest a lot of shots, but I'm just saying, if Jason Tatum, was playing normal, Andrew Wiggins is no more than just a defender on there. I don't think he really swayed the series that much. I think more Tatum was in his own head than Wiggins playing defense on him, in my opinion.
Can I cut you off right there real quick?
Shoot.
Cody, I think it's safe to say both things can be true. Wiggins played good defense, but also Tatum wasn't great in this series. And I don't think it was because of Wiggins. I think it had a factor in it.
Sure.
But exactly what you're saying. I feel like he was also in his head and just lost a lot of confidence. I think it's okay that both things are true.
Yeah.
I don't see what's wrong with that.
You know what? You're 100% right on that. I accept that. And I will give this example too. Wiggins played good D to where I will say too, though, the Warriors played a collectively good team defense on him themselves. This game 6 highlighted that as well. When Tatum was trying to go into the post, trying to shoot a 3, they closed out on him immediately. They doubled him when appropriate, made him give up the ball. But I will say too, the Celtics tried the same tactic on Steph Curry. But here's the experience difference. Steph Curry knew how to get out of the double, knew how to find his screener to kind of get around that. He knew how to get to the lane. So what Tatum was going through is also the same thing that Curry was going through, but Curry just knew how to break that defense down with his ball handling, his shooting, his passing ability. He had about 4 or 5 passes where he literally whipped the ball around from the back of his defender's head and hit his teammate in the hands, clear across the other side of the court. Tatum wasn't making those passes, but that just goes to show the level of experience and the difference between how great each player is. And I think Game 6 highlighted that specifically.
Yeah. I think you and I are in agreement. I don't see an issue with both statements being true, and it's okay that they collectively. I agree with you. I feel like the Warriors came into the series, and Steve Kerr pointed at Jason Tatum and said, "That's who we're gonna make lose confidence.
Yep.
We're going to go at him every single time. Every shot he has is going to be contested. I don't care if game 3 he has 0 points. We are still going to make him lose that confidence. Why? Because we don't want him to gain it back. We are going to continue to go at him. Let Jaylen Brown do his thing. Don't leave Jason Tatum alone. And I think that's exactly what they did, and they did it phenomenally.
As they are champions, as we stay here.
So I want to ask you one more question. We're probably going to go over a little bit, so I'm sorry. But I do want to ask this question. Cody, can the Warriors get back to the NBA Finals next year?
Yes. I think that they'll probably be better equipped. If James Wiseman comes back, there's no doubt in my mind that they are going to be in the finals. Kuminga is going to have another year of experience, especially going through the playoffs and seeing how the NBA Finals are. I think they have another role player. I want to say his name is Mooney or something along that. Looney. Well, I know they have Kayvon Looney, but they have another player.
Moody.
He's also a good young player. I really feel like if Jordan Poole really focuses on his skill set, such as I want his ball handling to be a little bit better. He's a little too loose, in my opinion. I mean, yes. I don't mind shaking the defender down and breaking his defense down, but it's on the line of also out of control. Like Steph Curry's ball handling, it is extremely well done and it's elusive. And Jordan Poole is trying to mimic that, but it's not nearly as controlled. Yeah. So if Jordan Poole can work on that, be a little bit better in terms of situations, when to go to the rack, when to distribute, not take too many crazy shots, obviously keep having that shooter's confidence, then I 100% believe that this Warriors team could easily repeat just with those pieces alone. And we're not even talking about Klay Thompson having a full regular season back of getting his shooting confidence back, because essentially he's been back since January or so. And I would even argue he's not even 100% yet. And they won with Thompson the way he was. And, they won a championship just with Draymond, Thompson, and Curry. And Thompson wasn't even one of their Splash Brothers, so to speak. He was kind of, he had his struggles. But I definitely think that the Warriors could repeat for sure.
I think it's going to be hard. They're going to have to make some. I think Otto Porter Jr., although I felt like he had a decent game for the minutes he played. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have to get rid of him, though. I think you're going to have to get rid of him. Obviously, Iguodala he's probably going to retire after this year. They're going to have to make a couple of moves. But I agree. I think with those guys gone, I think Kuminga is going to step up. I would love to see Wiseman, but I just have a feeling that they're going to trade away Wiseman. I don't think they're actually sold on him. So I do think they're going to make some moves. And to me, it's going to definitely determine how they're going to be. But I think they're at least going to be a playoff team. I think I like the Mavericks team. I still do like the Suns. I don't think they're all that bad. Hopefully the Lakers will make a move to where they can be a little bit better. And I think the Clippers.
Yeah, I think
the Clippers are a really good team.
Clippers could be coming back with Kawhi and PG, Tyronn Lue as their head coach. Yeah, that could be a team to watch out for in the West for sure.
So I think the West is still going to be very hard. We'll see how Utah does, but Denver, another team that's phenomenal. So, and they're going to get their guys back. So it'll be an interesting NBA season to say the least. Do I think the Warriors have a good chance of getting it into the NBA Finals again? I think they still do. I think they're that talented of a team. Mm-hmm. But I do think with how the West is, it's going to be hard to do it. So I'm going to say no, just to go opposite of you, but I'm not going to say it's impossible.
But you say that they'll at least get into the playoffs. You're just not sure about the finals again, right?
Yeah, NBA Finals, I think it's going to be hard, but we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, can't wait. I mean, I'm happy for Steph Curry. I'm sad NBA's over, and now we got to wait till October. But it's going to be a crazy offseason, and can't wait for it all to come back. So,
all right, Cody. So let me get to MLB Power Rankings real quick. Then we'll take a break and go into NFC South talk.
All right.
So we stopped for a couple of weeks, but I'm glad it's back. I have the MLB Power Rankings. Not much has changed, but a huge. I wish I had a broom in my hand right now. A huge sweep happened in the NL West, where the San Francisco Giants swept the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now it was in San Francisco, so that could obviously that can be slightly a factor, but at the same time, that was a huge sweep. Huge sweep for both teams. I feel like the Giants gained a lot of confidence after that sweep where they ended up winning the series over the Royals and they pretty much got out hit and they still won. And then the Dodgers, they don't look great. And then Walker Buehler went on the IL shortly after his disaster in San Francisco. So it'll be. I feel like the Dodgers are kind of in a rough spot right now. I don't think they're going to lose too much, and so let's get into it. I have the New York Yankees at number 1. I don't think there's any question. They have the best record in baseball. Aaron Judge right now is playing at his best and probably the best player in, I would argue, in the majors right now. I think he's playing phenomenally.
Would you say he's the AL MVP favorite?
As of right now, yeah, I would absolutely say that. I think Mike Trout is still in it, but as of right now, I would still have Judge over.
And Judge is from?
Fresno State, baby.
Let's go.
New York Mets at number 2. I love this team. They're still struggling with injuries, and yet they're still continuing to win these games. It is remarkable how good they are playing. I don't even think I've seen Scherzer all that much. I feel like
he's on the 15-day right now. I think, though, he's ahead of his rehab schedule from what I saw, but he's still out for a bit.
I mean, take your time with him. You're still winning. You're doing great. Keep it up. Don't worry about him coming back, rushing him back.
Yeah.
So this is the only difference I have. The Padres are at 3 over the Dodgers. And the reason being is the sweep that I was talking about. The Dodgers lost to the Giants, which, yes, it is a rival. So I don't want to panic too much. But the Padres now have the best record in the NL West, and it's without their, arguably, you could say, their best player. I would still put that at Manny Machado. I've always felt like Manny Machado is their best player when he's playing at his best. Last year, I think Tatis was the best one because he was playing at the top of his level. But this year, it's definitely Manny Machado. This guy should be NL MVP right now. I think he's just been phenomenal at the plate with his glove. And then it's going to be interesting to see how he plays with Tatis. Right. Hopefully he continues this, because if he does, this Padres team is for real. And their pitching, I mean, I didn't think their pitching was going to be as good, but it is. I mean, Yu Darvish, I have him every year in fantasy baseball.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can't do it anymore. This guy just bones me constantly.
Right.
And so I had to let him go. And of course, he's having a phenomenal year. And there was a point where I was like, maybe I'll try and make a trade for him. I was like, nope, Andrew, do not fall into the trap. It's going to happen. You're going to get him. He's going to fail. Don't do it. Just let him be. So good for the Padres. Obviously, I have the Dodgers at 4. No explanation there. They still have a great team, regardless of losing Walker Buehler. Kershaw is still not looking great, but he's still not the worst pitcher in the league. So, Kershaw is still he's still a guy who could be a number 2 in the rotation. So I don't think that's bad. And then the Houston Astros at number 5. Again, they're not in a great division. Obviously, the Angels have been struggling lately. I really like the A's, and then they have the Rangers there. So not too much competition, but overall, the Astros, they just keep winning. And I didn't think their bullpen was going to – I thought their bullpen was going to be their detriment. And right now it's actually been okay. So, good for the Astros. And so that runs out my top 5. So I have Yankees at 1, Mets at 2, Padres at 3, Dodgers at 4, and the Stros rounding it out at 5.
Right on. I'm surprised you didn't have the Red Sox in at 5, but maybe they'll be in next week.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I liked the Red Sox coming into this year, but I'm still a little. I mean, they're still only 34 and 30, so they still have a long ways. I mean, honestly, if I were going to put a team ahead of Boston, it would have been Toronto. I really like Toronto. I just feel like they've been having these weird loss. Like their last loss was to the Orioles. They lost 10-2. So, and they're going to face the Yankees coming up. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to see how that goes, and then I'll determine how I feel about the Blue Jays.
There you go. I have an impromptu Drew take question for you.
Okay.
I tagged you in a video on our Drew Code account on TikTok to, ironically, from the Backseat Podcast, their TikTok account, Clark, he mentioned that the New York market is the most overrated sports market. I was just curious, did you agree with him or not?
I agree with him because I do understand what he was saying. Like, it's ridiculous how much we talk about the Yankees, how much we talk about the Mets, because last year the Mets were kind of on a streak. And, I mean, Major League Baseball lost their mind. They're like, oh, my God. Oh, geez. Oh, the Mets, they're back. Holy cow. And then they ended up not doing well after that.
Right.
So it was just like, okay, let's temper expectations a little bit. Let's think this through. History tells us the Mets aren't going to be great towards the end of the year. So I like the Mets. I like their team. I think they can withstand what they're doing, but they're going to have to get healthy. If they're going to continue with the team that they have, then I think they can start to slide down a little bit. And I have still maintained I don't like the Yankees rotation as much as it has been playing well, and I don't like their bullpen. I'm not a fan of them. And their bullpen, their lineup is great. I mean, other than Joey Gallo still playing, which is remarkable in my opinion. And then we talk about the Knicks and the Nets. They completely flop every year, it seems like. And then we talk about the Giants and Jets. I mean, we'll get to them when we get to the NFC East and AFC East. And good Lord, I'm just so sick of hearing about Zach Wilson. And he's not Joe Montana yet, but he's so good. And it's just get over it. He's gonna suck this year again. It's not going to be great because the Jets are not a good team, and the Giants, for some reason, are like, oh, Daniel Jones, we'll keep him, and it's like I don't get it. So I will agree with him in the sense of it is kind of overrated. I do understand that they talk about. New York is, it is a sports mecca. So it is one of those where they, when New York is good, whatever sport you're talking about from New York is then going to be even more exciting.
Right.
But for me, I also am like, okay, we get all excited about New York, but let's kind of pump the brake a little bit on that because they still lately, last 10 years or so, haven't done much.
Well, I appreciate you answering that. So I was just curious on what your thoughts were.
Yeah. All right, Cody. Well, let's take a break. And when we come back, we will do our NFC South predictions. Yeah.
And we're back.
I know. I wanted to dance a little bit longer. Sorry. I had to take a drink and then whatever.
I know. By the way, what are you drinking over there? It is a very large drink. What do you got over there?
Well, first of all, I got my San Jose Sharks mug.
Okay.
And I'm drinking a little Jameson and Coke Zero because got to stay healthy. So, but it's like it's from the mini cans.
Gotcha.
So it's not as much soda because I can never finish like a whole can because I'm a wimp. But anyway,
that's fine.
So yeah, that's what I'm drinking. But anyway, so Cody, NFC South. This one I'm not as confident on my Saints prediction.
Yeah.
So I was telling you about it. This is probably going to be one of my amendments. We get one per conference. I assume I'm going to eat crow on this one, and we'll get to it in a second. But so what we have been doing, if you haven't been following, we go 4, 3, 2, 1, just kind of alternate between each other. So, Cody, I'm going to let you kick it off. NFC South prediction. Who is going to be in last place in the NFC South?
All right, so last place for me, I have the Carolina Panthers at 4-13. I'm not a huge fan of Sam Darnold. I have no trust in him. Robbie Anderson has already talked about thinking about retiring. The only shining light that this team has is DJ Moore, and that is it. They've lost every other good player. Their defense is young and a little up and coming, but I think, unfortunately, I think if Matt Rule is still the head coach, he's not going to be after this. They have Brian McAdoo, I think, as their new offensive coordinator, which tells me everything I need to know right there. There's just no way that this team is going to succeed. I have them at 4-13, and I struggled to find 4 wins. I kid you not, man. I almost had them at the Lions record last year at like 2-15 or whatever. So 4-13 is the best I'm going to do, and that's who I have in 4th place is the Carolina Panthers. So
I think you forgot to say Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yes, because
Yes.
he's been there every step of the way on the injured reserve list. That's neither here nor there.
He's probably going to get injured again this year because it's not looking good offensive line wise, quarterback wise. Yeah, that's just so funny. The Robbie Anderson's like,
Thinking about retiring.
yeah,
That's how bad the team is.
I might go.
Now here's the thing.
might
Here's
need
the
to
thing.
get out of
Before you go, if Baker Mayfield somehow, some way did get traded to the Panthers, which by the way, I already know got squashed. I'm just gonna. I know that if he did get traded, I would probably say that brings up their wins to maybe 6, because I think Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. Because Sam Darnold, unfortunately, the Jets ruined his career. We're gonna just blame the Jets for how he's turned out. Carolina did not help any much more, but I think Baker Mayfield, if he did somehow wind up on the Panthers, I think it gets them another win or 2, but not much more than that. I think this whole team needs to just rebuild again from the ground up. There's nothing good on this team except for maybe Christian McCaffrey, who you should probably think about trading for draft picks, and DJ Moore, like I mentioned. Other than those two, there is really nothing else going for them. So.
Yeah, as you did, I struggled to find 4 wins, and in fact, I didn't find 4 wins. I found 2 wins for the Carolina Panthers. I have them at 2-15. I am with you. I'm not. I mean, last year they went 5-12. I lost my spot here. Yeah, 5-12. Okay,
and I think 4 of those wins were like within the first 8 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I like Sam Darnold, but I'm with you. I think the Jets kind of ruined him. I think the Panthers, again, aren't making it any better. I actually like Matt Rule as a coach. I don't think he's been a bad coach. I don't think he's necessarily been coaching them out of wins or into losses. I feel like it's been more just kind of unfortunate circumstances. He has had no quarterback. I mean, he had to use Cam Newton last year, who scored a rushing touchdown and was yelling, "I'm back," and then the last 2 weeks proceeded to do absolutely nothing. So it's just kind of a crap situation. I have them splitting games between New Orleans and Atlanta, and those are their only 2 wins. I think Detroit is a better team. I think, obviously, Cincinnati, who's kind of a low-end team. The Giants, I still think the Giants, as much as I was, trashing them a second ago, I think they're a better team than the Panthers right now. And then they don't have any favors. I mean, they face like their first 5 weeks. Okay, the Browns. We'll see what happens. Then the Giants. That's in New York. That's kind of why I gave them the win.
Sure.
Then it's the Saints. Then it's the Cardinals. Then it's the Niners. And this is my favorite part of their schedule is at Rams and then at home versus the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
I don't see that as any kind of win. And then they go to Cincinnati, they go to Baltimore, they face Denver at home. their schedule is pretty rough, and obviously, again, they played the Buccaneers twice, and they have to go to Tampa Bay. So I don't see their schedule doing them any favors, and I think that's it, man. I think their schedule sucks. And I think they suck, and
that's a
there's
lot
nothing.
That's a lot of tough defenses that they'll be facing in the first 8 weeks. Before their bye week, they're going to be facing like six top 10 defenses right before.
They face San Francisco, then it's the Rams, and then they're like, oh, you know what? Let's add the Buccaneers to that too. Why not? And I'm sure Carolina's like, this is going to be awesome. Thanks, guys.
Sam Darnold is already ringing up his therapist right now to talk about all the sacks that he's already had.
Yeah, all the ghosts that he's going to see. All right, Cody. So, who is your number 3 team, and what is their record?
Number 3 for me is the Atlanta Falcons. I have them finishing at 6-11. I think that this team made some moderate improvements. They did draft Drake London. Obviously, they signed former Raider Marcus Mariota, and they have, I think his name is Ritter. Is that right? Or Riddler?
Yeah,
Ritter on the their new rookie quarterback, who's probably a project quarterback, but this team is okay offensively. They don't blow my socks off, and I think they're a subpar team. The 6 wins, I think I have them winning is just because, they got real lucky and they've played well enough to get this. I do see like Tampa clinching a playoff spot resting. So in the final week of the regular season, that's really the only one I have them taking a game from Tampa at home in Atlanta, because against the last game of the season, I think that most of the starters will be rested because they have clinched. And majority of the time, the lower end team usually plays that game pretty hard for pride. So that's the only notable win I have. But ultimately, I have Atlanta Falcons at 6-11. Just not enough there, especially defensively. They have a lot of work to do, but we'll see.
I think I'm in agreement with you with the Falcons being at number 3. I have them at 3-14. I think you can convince me that they could get maybe a couple of more wins, but to me, I hated the Falcons defense last year. They were 7-10 last year, but I think a lot of that was Matt Ryan. I think you went from Matt Ryan to Marcus Mariota. I think you are going to take a step back. Now, you have that ability of a quarterback who can run, so there might be a few more exciting plays in that perspective. But I don't think any of us are saying Marcus Mariota is a step up from Matt Ryan. And if you are, you're wrong, because the Colts got better all of a sudden getting
Colts are
Matt
all
Ryan.
of a sudden a Super Bowl favorite with Matt Ryan. So
yes. And I feel like the Falcons got worse. And I don't think it's any fault of Marcus Mariota. I'm not here slamming him. But I mean, they're not going to have Calvin Ridley this year. Who's going to be their playmaking receiver. So I think they have some good receivers, Russell Gage. But again, Matt Ryan is a guy who
Russell Gage is now on the Buccaneers. He signed with
them.
Oh,
I'm sorry. That's right. So you lost a lot already. And I think maybe a saving grace for them would be to go after Julio Jones again. That would be kind of just like maybe you get a few more seats in the stand, but for the most part, I hate their defense. I think their defense is awful. I feel bad for Mariota because now you're going to a worse offensive line than what you had in Las Vegas, which not saying Las Vegas's offensive line was terrible, just saying it's not going to be any better in Atlanta. It's going to be absolutely worse. So, I'm with you. I think you're going to see the rookie at some point, maybe after their bye week, which comes in week 14. So the last 4 games, I think you might see the rookie finish out the season for the Falcons, because I don't think it's going to be much of anything. But I have them splitting games with New Orleans and Carolina, and then I have them 1 win over Cleveland, because it is going to be in Atlanta, and it is early enough in the season to where I think they can win. I think they could possibly beat the Seahawks, but I was just kind of thinking about the offensive weapons that the Seahawks had, even though Drew Lock is not the best quarterback. I do feel like he could probably throw it all day against Atlanta, to DK Metcalf, to Tyler Lockett, and then they have a really good running duo in Chris Carson and Penny. So I think the Seahawks could easily win that, but also could lose it. But that's kind of why I gave them the win over the Browns. So I have them at 3-14, yeah, I'm just not excited about them. So Cody, who is your number 2 team in the NFC South?
So I have the New Orleans Saints in second place. I have them finishing at 9-8. I actually, hearing about some of the offensive weapons that are coming back, they did sign Jarvis Landry. Obviously, they have Jameis Winston coming back from a torn ACL, which you and I are we know much about. Well, I'll say. Sorry, words are hard right now. And their defense is much improved. Their offensive line only got better. They did sign some depth at the offensive line. They have Alvin Kamara. Michael Thomas should be coming back. Between you and I think that there's something going on between the Saints organization and Michael Thomas, just because it's very weird that we're going nearly 2 full seasons where Thomas hasn't seen the field. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe the Saints did ruin Michael Thomas's ankle. Maybe it's just Michael Thomas not wanting to play on the Saints anymore, but there's something going on there. I don't want to say that, where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm just a little eerie that, again, we're almost 2 seasons in and Michael Thomas hasn't taken the field. We assume that he'll be back on the field. And then at what capacity, how well will he do? We don't know. But I think Jameis Winston is good enough to where he can lead them to at least a above 500 record. He will have some young receivers that did get a year of experience. He's had a whole rehab now. They do have a new head coach in Dennis Allen, which, he's more defensive than offensive, but hopefully that doesn't change too much with essentially having the same coaching staff. But for the most part, I think the Saints will surprise some people. I do have them sweeping Carolina and Atlanta and splitting with the Buccaneers. But I do see it like they'll go on a hot streak, then they'll lose to the teams they're supposed to lose to, and then they'll go back and forth with a couple of games towards the latter part of the season. But ultimately, I'm pretty strong about them finishing at 9-8 with the second best record in the NFC South.
I think this is going to be my amendment, as I had started this segment saying I have them at 5-12, and I don't feel great about it. But I mean, I will let you know what my mindset was. I'm not a fan of Dennis Allen. I don't think he should have been the head coach. I think he was unsuccessful in Oakland, and I understand that it was Oakland. It was a absolute crap show in Oakland. So not entirely his fault, but at the same time, I think he was not very good. And I do feel like, yes, the Saints have had a really good defense, but I kind of felt like for years their defense was a little overrated. I felt like it was just because Dennis Allen continued to blitz constantly, and they would face teams like, Falcons, Panthers, Buccaneers at the time. They weren't these teams that were going to, be able to have a level head and just not worry about the blitz at all. So I felt like they kind of, and then they all obviously have benefited from Drew Brees. So this year coming in, I'm not a huge fan of Dennis Allen. I'm not sure what to expect with him as a head coach. Now, their defense did get better. They, obviously Tyrann Mathieu was one of their big offseason signings. But you're right. We don't know what receivers are going to have. Michael Thomas, we think, but who knows? I'm not too big on their running backs. I know Alvin Kamara, but he's kind of got some legal issues looming around him. So, we'll see if he's focused or if he's going to be distracted. I don't think their offensive line is as good as it used to be. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if I can trust Jameis Winston fully. And I also don't know if I can trust him to be healthy. And I think that's another issue that you're going to run into. So that's kind of what my mindset is. having said all that, I think your 9-8 record is way better than mine. I will already admit that. I was looking. I was like, I think I might want to give them like a win over Minnesota, a win over Pittsburgh, but I just kind of gave those teams the wins because it's in Pittsburgh. The like Philadelphia, it's in Philadelphia. Arizona, it's at Arizona. I kind of gave the Vikings the win because it is going to be overseas, and I just trust that Kirk Cousins is going to be himself. He's not going to change who he is. He's going to be consistent. And Jameis Winston, he's either really great or he's really bad. He's never kind of in the middle. So, and I feel like he thrived with Sean Payton. Now that he's with Dennis Allen, that's what I'm a little worried about as well. So that's why I have Saints so low. I think I'm way off on that, but I'm going to stick with it for now. And I fully anticipate that is going to be my amendment for the NFC.
Sure. The only thing I will say before we move on to number one is I think you being a little cautious regarding the team is understandable. But I will say, too, that this team is probably going to look closer to like a Tennessee Titans as a coach, Mike Vrabel, defensive first team, where I think that what you'll see the Saints that defend the ball very well, create turnovers and takeaways, and then give it back to the offense. My thing is the reason why New Orleans kind of struggled the way they did finish fairly decent. I think they were just below 500, but were relatively competitive through the whole season, was because they just didn't have a reliable quarterback. You had, was it Taysom Hill as your QB who couldn't throw the ball very well. Then you had Trevor Siemian when Taysom Hill was injured. You had no Jameis Winston for, I think it was 60% of the season. Yeah. So, given those factors, if Jameis Winston is healthy and he comes back, we can easily agree that is an upgrade at quarterback. And if at the very least, Jarvis Landry does help them in the receiving position because he's a veteran, he's still got a lot of life left in him. He was very productive in Cleveland. I think we can agree that Jameis Winston is an upgrade from Baker Mayfield in terms of throwing. So I will say that this will probably look like more of a defensive team first. They're going to be known for their defense, and the offense is going to supplement and score the points. But you're going to see a lot of drag-out games, maybe a lot of like 16-10 scores, a lot of 13-3 scores. You'll probably see a majority of that throughout the season with them because, again, they're going to be anchored on the defense, and the offense is just going to do enough to get by. Nothing more and nothing less. At least that's how I see this team constructed.
All right, Cody. So who is your number one team in the NFC South? Oh, I think we already know.
Yeah, I think it goes with no surprise. It's the Tom Brady Buccaneers. I have them. Yeah, new team. I have them going 12-5. So last season I was a little overzealous. I think I had them at 14-2 or 15-1 or something like that.
I think you had them at like 15-2.
Yeah, I was a little. I overshot this one. This one I think is, in my opinion, I feel like that this is a little bit high in the wins column, but I feel like that 12-5 is super achievable, way more palatable than 15-1. But I think Tom Brady coming back, Todd Bowles is the head coach. Outside of the other coaches that still remain intact, because Bruce Arians basically just handed over Todd Bowles the team, which it sounds like everyone is pretty reinvigorated to be back into football. Tom Brady is coming back potentially for his last season. I'm going to just say this is probably his final season because he signed that 10-year, $375 million commentating contract with Fox. Yeah. I'm pretty certain that there's a deadline to where he's going to be there. I'm sure they're not just paying him $300+ million for nothing. So I'm pretty certain that this is probably his last season. He still has Mike Evans. I'm pretty certain that Rob Gronkowski is going to come back. I don't see Rob not coming back for Tom Brady, especially if this is his last season. If not, you still have O.J. Howard there as your secondary tight end, who's a very good tight end. You have Chris Godwin, who is still on the team, coming back from an ACL injury, but probably will be back some point in the season. Again, you have Russell Gage that signed with them. That's going to basically be their new Scotty. I think it was Scotty Miller. Yeah, Scotty Miller, who basically was a slot receiver that Tom Brady liked. I think Russell Gage, obviously being more athletic and speedier, will probably fill in that role. The defense is the biggest question mark. I don't know if they've addressed secondary very well. And I'm curious to see if that interior can penetrate and win at the line of scrimmage and get home and sack a QB, because their pressure defense was not very good last season, which is probably the reason why that they couldn't stand a chance against the Rams, because the Rams, all they had to do was they were able to protect Stafford or move the pocket a little bit, and that negated basically the pass rush, and they were able to just buy time for Stafford to go down the field. So I think this one will be improved, but I do see Tom Brady in his last season going 12-5. I see this team going in a deep run. So I just will say that this is probably an NFC team I see going deep. Whenever we get to the playoff predictions, if we ever go down that route, I think this is an interesting team to look out for. But ultimately, I have the Buccaneers going 12-5 to finish first place.
All right. I think I am the person that is overzealous on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have the Buccaneers. Last year they went 13-4. I have them going 14-3.
Okay.
I think, first of all, their schedule is very favored towards them because they face teams like Dallas. Yes, it is in Dallas, but I mean, we're going to get to them when we get to the NFC East. Yeah.
Right.
And I don't like the Cowboys. I think
Yeah.
they're lucky that they're in the division that they are in, because if they are in the NFC South, if they're in the NFC West, they're not going to do what they're doing, which I think they're going to win a few games that I was actually surprised that I think they will. But at the same time, like I said, I feel like it's a benefit to what division they're in. But anyway, so I have them splitting games against New Orleans because New Orleans always plays Tampa Bay well.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's just always New Orleans. And I think New Orleans has a good enough defense to keep in that game at least manageable for them. So I also have them losing against the Rams. Now it's in Tampa Bay, so that was a hard one. But for me, I do feel like the Rams, especially Sean McVay, he will actually make sure that he's going to play and have his best offense and have his best defense in that week. He really wants to show, hey, Tom Brady isn't all that, hey, I can shut him down. So he's going to want to prove that, and I think that's going to be a loss for the Buccaneers. And then I have them losing against Arizona strictly because it is going to be in Arizona. But they do kind of have a rough stretch. I mean, they're going to face the Niners in week 14 in San Francisco. Say what you will about Trey Lance, I don't know. But for me, that defense is at least going to be somewhat grueling. Then they face the Bengals in Tampa Bay. But, the Bengals have a pretty good offense. And as you had mentioned, this defense isn't fantastic. And so I think that can kind of grind you down a little bit. And then you go to Arizona on a Sunday night game. I think Kyler Murray has a little bit to prove, and I think he'll prove it in that game. So other than that, I see them beating the Chiefs. I don't like the Chiefs offense this year, to be perfectly honest. I know it's Andy Reid. I know it's Patrick Mahomes, yada, 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 but they got worse on defense, in my opinion, and they got worse on offense. I don't think that's a recipe for success, in my opinion.
Right.
Obviously, I have them winning against the Steelers. I don't think I need to comment on that. I have them beating Baltimore. Cleveland, it's not a lot of great teams in this. And I think another thing that the Buccaneers might run into this year is kind of playing down to their opponent. So I think there could be a couple of more games, and to your credit, as you have them at 12-5, there could be a couple of more games where they lose randomly, where it was like, whoa, why did they lose that game? Just because I think they're going to go into it going like, okay, we're going to get in the playoffs. We don't really need this win, or we can try a few things. And to be perfectly honest, Todd Bowles is a defensive minded head coach. From what we have been hearing, he's really not going to be touching the offense. That's more Byron Leftwich and Tom Brady, and then Todd Bowles kind of handles the rest.
Right.
We'll see how that goes. I mean, we've heard nothing but good things about Byron Leftwich, but also we've kind of been hearing that a lot of the play calls were kind of going more Bruce Arians. And so how good is Byron Leftwich, I think we're going to find out specifically this year. So there could be some hiccups here and there early in the season. They could easily lose that Chiefs game. But yeah, I have them 14-3. When you have Tom Brady, I don't think that's that far-fetched to say that you think they're gonna win a division that is, I mean, minus New Orleans and what I was predicting. Atlanta and Carolina is not scaring you at all.
No.
And so I think this is a very winnable division for the Buccaneers, and I think they're going to win it with flying colors, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, argument could be made that it's the Buccaneers to lose. I mean, they would literally have to have a catastrophic season to not win the division, because I don't even think New Orleans would capitalize on having the opportunity. I don't know if they would know what to do with it. Because again, I would agree with you in the sense of Dennis Allen. I don't think that he's the right guy for the job. I just think that they've all been together for a while. And plus Tom Brady's in the division. He won however many conference titles in New England consecutively over the other teams because he was in that division. And I think this is no different. There's no team that scares me in this division that could come close to competing with Tampa Bay. So
it's all good stuff, man. So we'll see. I hate my New Orleans prediction, but who knows? Maybe it'll come true, and I can be on here and be like, I was right. I am so good. Like I was so smart at the NBA Finals. But I really highly doubt it, to be honest. So
yeah. All right, let's do a quick recap then. So I have at number 4 Carolina at 4-13. 3, I have the Atlanta Falcons at 6-11. 2, New Orleans Saints at 9-8, and I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 12-5. Drew, you had?
I have the Carolina Panthers at 4 at 2-15. I have the Atlanta Falcons at 3 at 3-14. I have the New Orleans Saints at 2 at 5-12, and then I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 14-3.
We're gonna put an asterisk on your Saints prediction because that's probably gonna be one that you use.
Yeah, I'm very mad at myself, but like, you know, we had kind of already talked about AFC and NFC North, and there's already a couple of games that I would probably give them back.
Right.
And then I'm just like, I've already predicted. Like it's kind of hard to change that. And then I was kind of looking at, okay, well maybe I could give them a win over Las Vegas. No, Arizona. Nope. No, no, I don't know. I was like, so I'm just gonna keep it. Forget it. So I'll keep it, but I know I'm gonna eat crow on that. But that's all right. All right. So thank you guys so much for listening. Cody will probably put a little more touch on this, but I'm going to touch on it first. We are going to be starting a fantasy football league. We're still determining whether we're going to do ESPN or the NFL fantasy app. And if you say Yahoo Fantasy, I'm going to come over there personally, slap you in the face. I hate that. I'm sorry. I hate that app. Anyway, so ESPN or NFL Fantasy, we're trying to figure that out. But if you'd like to join, please let us know. Email us, message us on, or DM us on any of the social media sites. We want to hear from you. Even if it's on like TikTok and you want to comment on it, feel free. We want to hear from you. We want to know if you want to join, so that way we can get it started. We're trying to get some things together for prizes and whatnot. So we will let you know as soon as we figure all that out. But please, if you are interested, let us know. We want you to join us. I have my, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but I got my fantasy football champion trophy right behind me as I won last year. So if you want to face a champion, you know, come over to our league. But thank you guys so much for listening. As I mentioned briefly, go join our social media pages, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. It's all Drew Code Sports Talk, except for Twitter, which is Drew_Code. So go check us out on all of that. Follow us, like, and comment on anything we post. We always want to hear from you. Also subscribe to YouTube channel, which again is Drew Code Sports Talk. And if you're not watching this, you're hearing this on podcasts, which we're on all the major podcasts, which is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So go check us out and write a review. Give us a 5-star. Let us know what you like about about our show. And even if it's a 1-star, let us know what we're doing that you didn't like, and so that way we can continue to get better. But we appreciate all the love and support. And like I said, we always want to hear from you. So let us know what you like. And then go check out our partners over at fnxfitness.com. They have great workout gear, great workout supplements. I am so far behind on my supplements right now. I need to get back into it, unfortunately. But you can use our promo code by getting 15% off your whole purchase by using the promo code DrewCode15. It'll be in the description, in the show notes, in the podcast, and on YouTube as well. So go check it out. And, go check them out. And they sell out really quick. So you're going to need to, if you're interested, you need to go do it now. Just to see what you're going to want to get. And like I said, get 15% off. Why not? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, absolutely. Just go do it. So thank you guys so much. And I'm going to throw it over to Cody, and he is going to finish this off.
That's right, guys. So again, thank you so much for joining us. As Drew mentioned, subscribe, download our podcast, our YouTube channel. Again, if you guys want to join us in a fantasy football league, shoot us a DM on any of the social media platforms. Send us an email. We'd love to get you guys in the league with us and have a good old time. More details to come. And again, we just want to give one last shout out to Ethan and Clark from the Backseat Podcast.
Yes.
We appreciate you guys for being so gracious and inviting us on your show. They're coming on our show very soon. We'll have more details coming out on our social media pages. So check that out. And again, you guys, we thank you so much for listening. And we'll catch you guys next week when we do the AFC South. Probably arguably one of the worst divisions in all of football. But nevertheless, we will still do it for you guys because we have nothing else better to do. So anyways, you guys, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.